Hello, and welcome back to the podcast that must not be named. I am Luke.
I am Melissa.
And we are here in the penultimate chapter of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Book 3, Chapter 21, Hermione's Secret. This chapter was 30 pages. Holy cow. And that is almost 10% of this book. 9.71% of this book.
And now, a voice of the Imaginary Legion.
Chapter 21, Granger's Secret. Harry and Hermione wake up in the hospital wing and overhear Fudge and Snape talking about the capture of Sirius. They find out Ron will live, but he's still unconscious from the attack from Wormtail. When they find out that the Dementors will soon be giving Sirius a kiss, they jump out of bed, causing a commotion, which causes Snape and Fudge to enter. They try to explain to the Minister of Magic Black's innocent, however, he will hear nothing of it. Dumbledore arrives and speaking to Harry and Hermione alone, tells them he will leave Sirius' story, and that he is innocent, but there is nothing he can do to overrule the Ministry of Magic. What they need is more time. Hermione understands him. He tells her what room Sirius is being kept in, and that they may be able to save more than one life tonight, and that 3 turns ought to do it, before locking the door to the ward and leaving. Hermione springs to action and throws the chain she had hidden around her neck around Harry as well, and turns the hourglass on the end 3 times. The two are transported back in time 3 hours, and as they hide, Hermione explains she's been using a time turner to take all the extra lessons this year. They quickly deduce that they need to head to Hagrid's, as the first life they can save in that night is Buckbeak's, and that they will need to use him to save Sirius from the room in the West Tower. They head down to Hagrid's, and as they watch themselves through the windows, Harry and Hermione discuss the perils of time paradoxes and why they can't just run in and kill Peter Pettigrew now that they know that where he's at. Once the moment arrives, the duo are able to untie Buckbeak and lead him back to the forest, only after the minister and other officials had seen him. They wait in the dark and watch themselves head into the passage under the Whopping Willow and wait for themselves to re-emerge. Harry tells Hermione he believed he saw his father save them from Dementors, and since Pettigrew came back tonight, why couldn't his dad as well? Hermione doesn't know how that can be possible, but Harry was sure it looked like him. As the motley crew of Harry, Ron, Hermione, Sirius, Lupin, Snape, and Pettigrew emerges from the tree, Harry heads outside to get a better look so that they know what's going on, but promises not to get involved. Time paradoxes and all. He heads to the opposite end of the lake where he saw his father and waited, and waited, and waited, and watched as the Dementors approached closer and closer to him, Sirius, and Hermione. That is, until he realized it wasn't his father he saw, but he saw himself. He stood up, pointed his wand, gave the incantation, which produced a fully fledged Patronus, which causes all the Dementors to scatter, and when it returns to him, he sees it's a stag, just like his dad, Prongs. Harry watches as Snape collects up the group and takes them to the castle. He heads back to Hermione and tells her what happened. She's annoyed because he wasn't supposed to get involved, however realizes that if he hadn't, she'd probably be worse off than dead, but not quite expelled. They waited a bit longer and head up to the 13th window from the right of the West Tower where Sirius is being held. In his skinny state, he's able to slip through the narrow gap and onto Buckbeak's back. The trio head to the roof where Sirius tells Harry he truly is his father's son, and that they will see each other again, before flying off on Buckbeak and leaving Harry and Hermione to fend for themselves.
All right, Melissa. So, second to last chapter, we couldn't possibly have new characters introduced, right?
Well, I feel like we got some first names of characters that we've met, but they got first named, so we like to
stand up and recognize.
That's right. So we have Poppy Pomfrey.
Yeah, Poppy.
And Walden McNair.
Walden. Any thoughts on Walden?
It sure sounds like Walder.
There you go.
Another guy I know that likes to...
Argus Filchy?
Kind of, although this is, but that's my first little thought on those.
Yeah, fair enough.
How about you?
So we also had, I'll call it a kind of a character introduction. We met Prongs the Patronus. We finally figure out that we'll discuss it as we go along, but it was Harry's Patronus. He meets it for the first time. And he realizes that it's the form of his dad, Prongs, the stag. Pretty interesting. I'm going to count that as a character in this chapter. You agree?
I think that works really well. How about some locations? Did we go anywhere new?
I think we did. So there was mentioned early in this chapter, or actually it might have been last chapter. Don't hold me to that. I think it was early this chapter that Sirius was being held in Flitwick's office. They mentioned that early in the chapter, but then whenever, towards the end of this chapter, Harry and Hermione show up on Buckbeak and rescue Sirius from the window, we're to assume that's Flitwick's office. We've never been there before, as far as I know.
That's true. So you're putting a few little random pieces of information together and assuming we're visiting Flitwick's office.
I'm doing a little bit of deduction.
The window of Flitwick's office.
Exactly. Sirius was in there, and I'm going to count that as us being there.
Yes.
And all of this, towards the end of the chapter, seems to happen in a tower that we may or may not have been in, as far as I know. But the first time it's been named as the West Tower. Was said multiple times as a plural noun. Never been a plural noun before. So, West Tower.
All right. We had some new magicabulary as well.
Okay.
We had the Confundus charm that Snape accuses the children of having been the recipients of.
Bewitched by.
Which means they were confunded. I like the verb.
Yeah. And another noun that we have is the Time Turner.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah. Speaking of which, let's talk about that illustration.
Hey, guess what it is?
It looks like a time turner.
It looks like a time turner.
Looks kind of like an hourglass on a chain.
I'm going to go with time turner.
Not sure what else that could be interpreted as.
Nope, me neither.
All right. Well, that's enough of that then.
Alrighty. Luke, you got some notes?
I do. This was a long chapter. And we've kind of been making jokes about this chapter coming up over the last 5 chapters.
5.
All of the last 5 chapters, we just revisited. I mean, in bystander version, right? We stood on the side and rewatched the bystanding events of everything we just saw. like what is going on here?
So, my first thought really goes to imagine trying to write this plot. I know. So you're J.K. Rowling and you're sitting at your desk.
I am. You're right.
Whatever. Right. So you're sitting down and you're thinking, so I have this series of events that I wish to have happen. The kids visit Hagrid.
Some of which were unfortunate. Yeah.
Some were less than wonderful. Very few happy things happened in the middle, but they happened. And I want them to visit Hagrid, and then I want them to hear Buckbeak being killed, but not actually see it. And, the dog's going to get them, and they're going to go to the thing, and they're going to have this person show up, and this person show up, and then they're all going to come out, and then Lupin's going to turn to werewolf, and Pettigrew's going to get away. That's like timeline A. But concurrently, before she writes anything, you have to have timeline B of second Harry and second Hermione doing things parallel but not equal to.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
you have to lay them both out all the way, and then you go back and you write it. You're like, okay, timeline A took me 5 chapters to write. I don't have 5 more chapters. We're going to speed through this. Timeline B gets 1.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And it really makes me think of classes in high school. This is before, this is the classic projector with clear form sheets, right? Yes. And so you have the teacher's notes, and then he's writing notes in magic marker on top of them.
Yes.
It's what it feels like. You come up with the overall plot points, and then you're just adding some flavor to it on the secondary level. You're adding these layers to it and making sure that they jive. And those magic marker marks are influencing what happens in what you called plot A. And yes. I think it's very interesting, and I think we'll have to maybe dig into in our end of book discussion a little bit more on the type of time travel that this is, because there's in fiction there's a lot of different styles of time travel, and we'll just revisit that there. But okay. I find this a very interesting one. But before we go through all of the past 4 chapters again,
Right.
we have the beginning or the very end of plotline A. Well, I think that's the only way we can really discuss this is plot A, plot B. Let's stick with that nomenclature. And so the very end of plot A, we have Harry and Hermione kind of waking up in the hospital wing, right? And they overhear Snape and Fudge talking.
Yes.
I mean, Snape's the worst, right? I mean, he's just...
He is the worst.
I don't know how else to say it. He's just so frustrating.
But here's the thing. He's so good at being the worst. Because,
he's good at being bad.
like, even his vocabulary that he's choosing, it's like, what did he say? And of course, Potter has always been allowed an extraordinary amount of leeway by the headmaster. And then Fudge cuts him off. Yeah, we all have a sore spot. He's like, but is that in the best interest of him? I personally always try to treat him like I
Undoubtedly, the boy has been foolish, but...
Yeah. Like, you can say, like, okay, I'm agreeing with you that it wasn't maybe necessarily Potter's fault entirely, but let's take those rose-colored glasses off Fudge because Potter is not perfect.
Right,
Let
and
me
Fudge isn't.
Smarm my way in because, I mean, this is the first time I think we really see Severus turning on the charm, I say, with like trepidation.
He's
that's his
politicking a bit.
Yes.
Right? I mean, he's trying to get this. I mean, it's Fudge that says Order of Merlin, 2nd class, I'd say. 1st class, if I can wangle it. Like, what? Like, of course, it's interesting.
Knocked out by kids and then finding passed out people and carrying them
right.
back up.
And talk about just gaming the system here. Like, Snape knows that he didn't do anything. I don't know, but his perspective is so odd because he, even when he was knocked out, thought that he was completely justified and doing the right thing. He wasn't listening to reason.
No.
And he does look at it as, I saved Sirius, Harry, Hermione, and Ron from the Dementors.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his reality. He woke up and did that thing.
He's not wrong, but he definitely
is skewing it selfishly. It feels like
it doesn't listen to the word of the people who were, conscious when he wasn't.
Yeah,
to at least get the sense of the whole story. Yeah,
just so convinced that they were confounded, and that basically all of their thoughts mean nothing at that point.
Yeah, you were the worst, Snape, to paraphrase from Hamilton.
So after that, Dumbledore pretty clearly believes Sirius and the kids. And
I have one more thing
go
about
for
the
it.
argument. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
When Harry and Hermione.
Harry and Hieronymy. That sounds very Greek, doesn't it? Hieronymy.
That guy's passed out in the bed next door. Harry and Hermione jump into the conversation because at first it was just Snape and Fudge, but eventually the two of them are like, no way, that's not what happened. No, that's not what happened. But I like how Harry gets silenced, and I just want to take a moment to appreciate how Harry is silenced in that conversation.
Yes, please do.
And the quote is, "But Madame Pomfrey suddenly stuffed a large chunk of chocolate into Harry's mouth. He choked, and she seized the opportunity to force him back onto the bed."
Whoops. Oh, chocolate. Oh, God.
I think that is the first time I ever read that line.
Oh, really?
Not that I haven't read that line and
first time you dwelled and processed it.
Yes, because I've always wanted so desperately to get to the rest of the chapter. I mean, we're on page 2 or 3 of 30 ridiculously long pages.
Right.
So little moments like that usually just kind of fly right past me in my speed reading. But I saw that and I was like, wait, what? And I went back and I read it 3 times today when I was checking on this chapter going, so she shoved something in his mouth and forcibly threw him back on a bed.
All right, there's an opening. Shove.
And I can see her putting 2 hands on his shoulders and like wrestling him down.
The slapstick that JK is able to put into these books, it's subtle, but when it happens, yeah, these were books written to become movies, right? I mean, like, There's so much visual thing, there are so many visual items.
No one used those. Sorry. Sidebar.
And this is a scene, it's gotta happen. Like, it's so funny. Like, he's trying to, plead his case, and it's just, it's so slapstick and cartoony. It's very Acme Industries, chocolate in the face, right? Like,
yes. Like,
It's
ridiculous.
hilarious.
So yeah, no, I liked that moment. I had to say that. But now let's talk about when
We're
Dumbledore
not
comes in.
confunded, Harry roared. Yeah, no, it's hilarious. And, it gets to the point where even Dumbledore's like, I would like to speak to Harry and Hermione alone. Cornelius, Severus, Poppy, please leave us. And then Snape has to go along and basically, be like, Sirius Black showed he was capable of murder at the age of 16. You haven't forgotten that, Headmaster. You haven't forgotten that he once tried to kill me? My memory is as good as it ever was, Severus. Get out. Like, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. It's a completely unrelated situation here. And that's your very biased piece of information here. Has, one, no bearing on this situation right now. And two, all of the other evidence is kind of stacking up on Harry and Hermione and Sirius's side. Like, it is definitely the trusting in people, maybe too much at times, but we also, like, us as the reader, know the truth. So it's like, come on, man. Come on.
Oh, people.
Gosh, just gotta people sometimes.
I know.
And even with that, Dumbledore's honest about it. He says, when he's talking to Harry and Hermione, because they're still trying to plead their case of, he's innocent and all these things. And even Dumbledore's like, I get it. I'm on your team. But Sirius hasn't acted like an innocent man. He attacked, the fat lady in the portrait. He entered Gryffindor Tower with a knife. Like, he escaped. Like, these are all not
Guilty
good things. Right. And it's not going to be an easy sell from two 13-year-olds compared to a pretty well-respected potions master at our school.
But here's the part that I really latched onto this time. In that conversation, Dumbledore really needs to give directions.
He should be a little more explicit on what he's looking for.
Not that. It's that he needs to give directions, but he can't because Harry and Hermione keep ranting at him because they needed to be believed. So
kind of like how our podcast goes, where I just need to let you talk sometimes, and I just keep cutting you off.
Yeah, that would be great, So you've got...
So go ahead and tell us about that.
Listeners, if I make it through this show without killing Luke, it's because we're not actually in the same room.
Called slapstick podcasting.
I think I need to renegotiate my contract. Ooh, look, he's being quiet. Okay, here I go. So you've got Dumbledore, who has a specific focus and want for this scene. And then you've got Harry and Hermione, who have a different specific focus and want for the scene. And those two needs are at conflict with each other because they both believe their need is the greater need. To me, that's like the epitome of adults and like preteens or teen discussions. The adults need this done. The preteen needs to have or teenager needs to have their opinions and their beliefs validated and believed. And at the end of the day, they have the same goal. They both want to help Sirius, but neither is saying that, and they're not finding that common ground. And I just find that a very interesting perspective on this particular exchange.
I completely agree. And I will throw another more closer to home for me experience that I've had recently. And it's like a group of us at work, the younger professionals, have felt almost the same level that Harry and Hermione are as the more veteran professionals at work, because we want to be involved and they want us to be involved. But how to do that is always tough. And at the end of the day, your goals are the same. Like, just everyone listen. But if everyone listens, then no one's talking at the same time. So someone needs to just say, let's go and do this, and here's what we're getting out of it, and that's it. It's got to come from both sides. It's got to be a communication, which is a two-way street.
In communication, you need to stop and everybody just have a chance to say, what is your primary target? Because if they had each taken time to say, what I really want is for Sirius to be okay, and Dumbledore to say, I really want that too.
We can also save Buckbeak.
Right.
Okay, how do we do that? Let's go, team. We have 5 minutes.
Board.
That was a 2-minute conversation. Just
just
be straightforward.
And what if saved us a good 3 pages in this chapter?
See why I like direct communication? I know you complained at me before, but that's what I'm talking about. No guesswork on something like this.
So then we get to Time Turner, timey-wimey land.
Yeah. So let's get into plot B. We're several minutes into this.
And here's the thing. I think the only way to sum this up is when Harry turned to Hermione after she explained it and he's kind of lived it for a few minutes. He looked at her and goes, this is the weirdest thing we've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a comment that goes right along with that, and it's further on in the chapter, but he's like, there we go. We're in. When they're going into the willow, and it's just like, all right, this is odd. And it just is. And guess what? It's supposed to be.
Yeah. Or like he was like, hey, 3 hours ago we were walking down to Hagrid's. And she's like, no, this is 3 hours ago. And we are walking down to Hagrid's. And Harry's like, but I'm sitting right here. I'm not walking down to Hagrid's now. I already did that.
But I'm here.
I'm doing that. And yeah, it's very backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And right along with that is, when they're outside of Hagrid's hut and they're kind of talking like, well, remembering back and watching it, remembering and watching it. It's like watching your favorite, movie for like the second or third time. And you're like, wasn't paying that a close of attention the first time. What happens like minute by minute is what they're trying to figure out on their own lives. And that's bizarre.
It's very bizarre.
And so Hermione is kind of like, okay, this just happened, and I'm about to find Peter Pettigrew. I'm about to find Scabbers in the milk jug. And Harry's like, well, Hermione, what if we just run in there and grab Pettigrew? And she's like, no, abandon plot. Like, just don't do it at all. And that's like another one of those, it's impossible for him to kind of grasp that.
But here's the thing. If he was going to do it, he would have already done it. And so they would have already had the ramifications of that. So, of course, he didn't do it.
Right. And say that one more time.
I will say it slower and with more details. If he was going to do something like that, going in and grabbing Scabbers early, then he would have already experienced him doing that. And the ramifications of him doing that would have already been felt by first version
himself,
Harry.
Plot A
Harry.
Yeah.
Because, and we know that's true because we heard like the swish of the axe, which was a direct result of what plot B Harry and Hermione did to Buckbeak.
Right. Yep. They were directly related there. So the type of time travel this is called, and we'll dig into this again, like I said later, but this is called congruent time travel. Basically, all timelines are happening at the same time at all times. There's no rewriting the past. There's no changing what can happen. It's just doing what's already been done because it was done in the future past.
You're just doing a different version of it.
Right.
Or like you're doing almost like you're looking at it from a different angle, but it's the same.
All actions that occur have always actually occurred.
Yes.
And I know that's confusing, but,
so we're going to move on because that's giving me a headache.
Yeah. So going along with the Harry being confused side of this, which is fun. Hermione, said Harry suddenly, what if we just run in there and grab Pettigrew? No, said Hermione in a terrified whisper. Don't you understand? We're breaking one of the most important wizarding laws. Nobody's supposed to change time. Nobody. You heard Dumbledore. If we're seen, we'd only be seen by ourselves and Hagrid. Harry, what do you think you'd do if you saw yourself bursting into Hagrid's house? Said Hermione. I'd think I'd gone mad, said Harry. Or I'd think there was some dark magic going on. Exactly. You wouldn't understand. You might even attack yourself. Don't you see? Professor McGonagall told me what awful things have happened when wizards have meddled with time. Loads of them ended up killing their past or future selves by mistake. Okay, said Harry. It was just an idea. It is definitely one of those fundamental principles of physics and life. Like, no, you can't change time, like, your time period or your timeline. And Harry's getting a crash course in this, right? Right.
Like, it's not like he went through the Professor McGonagall super secret lessons on time.
Which Hermione has had all year long.
Right.
So he's doing okay. He hasn't gone into full outright Harry jump to conclusions map Harry.
He doesn't have his jump to conclusions map out.
Right. The guy made $1 million. All right. So what else do we have going here?
I want to do all the timey-wimey stuff now.
Okay. Let's run through that.
So there was something later on when they were talking about, they were at the Whomping Willow, right? So we're there now, and the Whomping Willow, and they're waiting, and there goes Lupin, and he walks by, and the cloak is laying there, and then before Snape comes, Harry's like, oh, if only Lupin had grabbed the cloak. Ooh, maybe I'll go get it. And Hermione's like, Harry, we mustn't be seen. And he's like, how can you stand this?
Yeah.
How do you just stand by and watch these things happen when you can? I think it's like going against the grain of every Gryffindor cell he has in his entire body.
If I have this power, I should use it to do the right thing. And he's right. Like his motives are correct. But it takes logic and reason to know,
and self-control
to not do those things, because it will destroy everything.
Right.
Like everything that got you to where you are will be undone if you change one of the key elements.
Yes.
And it's the right thing to want to do those things, but you can't. It stinks, but all of the unfortunate and fortunate events that have occurred have to occur from plot A so that you can actually get to be where you're at in plot B.
Because otherwise you wouldn't have made it to plot B. Therefore, plot B wouldn't be happening. Therefore, you wouldn't be able to do any of these things.
Poof. You probably don't exist anymore.
Excellent. All right, let's move off of non-timey-wimey type thoughts. What else do you have?
So whenever Buckbeak goes with Harry, it's a little bit of a tense moment, right? Like obviously Harry goes in and does the bow again, and it's perfectly timed plot wise that it just works out. It's a little bit convenient writing. We'll talk to Riley when we get there, but
yeah, we'll see if he notices.
He probably will. But it's supposed to create this drama in this timey-wimey, very intricate set of chapters.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting that Buckbeak does go with Harry in the fact that he has no reason to think anything's amiss other than, why am I getting pulled away from my yard? Right? I don't know. You had a note about Dumbledore, or is that later on? That's one of your questions. We'll get back to that later. Sorry.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yes.
And at the end of that scene, there was a swishing noise and a thud of an axe. The executioner seemed to have swung it into the fence in anger. And you kind of touched on that earlier, and I like that you did, because that is one of those really, really well done timey-wimey events where, at this point, four and a half chapters ago, they're walking away and they hear that thud of the axe, and they have the completely opposite reaction to it because
they think it's Buckbeak's head.
Right. That's confirmation that, well, there goes Buckbeak, right? And there's no way we could possibly undo that, and that's terrible.
Yeah. And my other thought on that is thank God they didn't turn around 5 chapters ago, because that would mess up the whole thing.
Right. So they go along, and McNair is losing his mind. He's, I saw him here,
he was here. We have to go find him.
Right.
You stop talking.
I'm searching for the book.
Sorry.
See, when you do that, I have to find these things and edit them out. It was tied here, said the executioner furiously. I saw it, just here. How extraordinary, said Dumbledore. There was a note of amusement in his voice. Beaky, said Hagrid huskily, and then they do the swishing noise and the thud. Someone untied him, the executioner was snarling. We should search the grounds, the forest. McNair, if Buckbeak has indeed been stolen, do you really think the thief will have led him away on foot, said Dumbledore, still sounding amused. Search the skies, if you will. Hagrid, I could do with a cup of tea or a large brandy. I love that scene, because they don't, in our perspective as the second time through this series of events, Hagrid and Dumbledore don't necessarily know what has happened, but they're cool with it. They're yeah,
bummer.
Great, because we know Buckbeak deserved liberty and freedom anyway.
Freedom.
I don't care how it happened. I'm going to go and change the subject and be like, you're not going to find him, McNair, you greedy whatever you are.
Misogynist or whatever your problem is.
Yeah. Creatureist? I don't know what that term would be, but
it's a good question.
Jerk.
Yes, that's accurate.
So then we have several other scenes with timey-wimey events, and they go into the tree. They see themselves coming out of the tree. They see the werewolf transformation. They run back to Hagrid's hut, right? And I like that they did that because, and when they got there, Buckbeak felt comfortable again, like for the first time. He's been wigging out, right?
What's been going on?
Like, I'm just hanging out, guys. Like, what in the world? And
where's Hagrid?
right? One thing that we didn't talk about, I like whenever Harry was gonna get the cloak, and it's Hagrid that's walking by drunkenly singing at the top of his lungs. I love that quick scene before Snape goes by and grabs the invisibility cloak, but I just like the throw out to Hagrid celebrating. Nice. And so then Harry's, kind of watching the clock, and he knows things are going down after Lupin runs off into the woods as a werewolf, and the Dementors are coming, and he knows where the story is going, and he can't help himself to want to go see his dad, right? He knows at this point that it's his dad that shot this Patronus. Can you blame him here?
No, not at all. It's exactly what I would do.
Right? And he knows it's dangerous, but he is also taking precautions to not get involved. He's taking all of the advice Hermione has given him. He's trying to stay on the other side of the lake. He knows the Dementors are coming from this side. He's not on that side, so he's not going to influence anything. And then it hit him. He understood. He hadn't seen his father. He had seen himself.
Oh.
And Glenn's home.
Huh. I really like that moment, and that he was okay that it wasn't his dad.
Yeah, that could have been a lot worse for him, I think. Yes. And even the scene right before that is kind of even heart-touching because he's creeping up there, and he knows that there are Dementors, and they're emerging out of the darkness in every direction.
Yes. And
he's looking, and he says, "Come on," he muttered, staring about. "Where are you, Dad? Come on." But no one came. And that's got to hit you in the feels a bit, right? This kid who grew up with nobody, and he finally feels this chance of, it doesn't make any sense, but I have to believe that this is the thing because that's where we're at right now. In my heart, this is what I saw. Uh-huh. And the fact that he can turn that around and be productive with it and make it happen, I think is a true testament to him as a character. Not just, it's Harry, the name on the book. This is a good Harry moment. Being able to take that heart-wrenching spot and realize, well, I just have to do this. It's me, and let's get it done. I think it's a really good Harry moment.
I agree. I don't have anything to add to that at the moment. I'm going to save my thoughts for later.
So they get out of Dodge, right? And
I'll fly away.
Right? My final note on this is they get to the West Tower.
The West Tower.
Quit playing with your mic, please.
Sorry. West Tower.
They get to the West Tower, and do you think it's surprising that Buckbeak trusted Sirius right away?
Yes.
We know that that's such a thing, right?
And nobody trusts Sirius.
It's one thing for him to jump out of the window, and they're like, okay, well, I have Harry on my back and Hermione and all this. And he jumps out of the window. They go to the top of the tower.
Yep.
And then it's just not a big deal that Sirius can fly away on Buckbeak. Buckbeak doesn't expect Sirius to prove himself.
I guess not.
I don't know. Just thoughts among thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with you. That is an odd moment that I feel like I've wondered before, but I didn't wonder this time. So I'm glad you were there to wonder that for us.
That's why we're such a good team.
There you go.
Hey, Melissa, you got any questions for me?
I do.
Set him on fire!
Here we go. Question 1. Do you think that Cornelius Fudge is ageist because he's taking the word of an adult over the children, or is he just easily manipulated by Snape?
I feel like it's more ageist in this case. I mean, these are kids. Yeah, it's the famous Harry Potter, but they're kids. They don't know.
Really know.
Right?
That's what I was thinking.
That's the feeling that I get from it. And Snape is feeding into that, sure. I think he has gauged that correctly about Fudge, but I think it's definitely more of an ageist thing than him being so easily manipulated by Severus Snape.
I agree. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay. Good answer.
Question 2. What practical, real-life applications can you think of for a time turner?
More time to do more podcasts and editing correctly without making mistakes.
Ah, right.
Like, hey, you put a podcast out today and it was out of order. The summary was after the chapter statistics.
Don't anybody go looking for that.
Can't find it now. 15 people can find it. I don't know. Like, that would be the main thing, is just having more time to do more things. Similar to what Hermione has used it for, I think.
So my answer to this is cheesy. Once upon a time, many, many moons ago, decades ago, there was a TV show called Out of This World.
Yeah, there was.
It was a girl named Evie who was part alien, and her dad spoke to her through like this weird geometric glowing shape on her dresser, and she could stop time by putting her two fingertips together, and she could restart time by putting her basically clapping, right? And I always thought, I so desperately want that power so I can get extra sleep. Like, I would stop time and sleep.
Over and over and over again.
And then when I would clap and wake up, then I would start my time over. And I could, like, continue working. But if I was tired, like, meh,
Look at an extra hour and a half. Sure.
yeah. So, like, I might use the time turner for that. You know what? I really need a nap, and I'm in the middle of the workday. So I'm going to, like, go to the bathroom.
I'm going to do this hour twice.
Do this hour again and, like, take a nap in the back of my car or something.
Reasonable, yeah.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, I know, like, whatever, like, hey, what would your, choice of superhero power be? Like, your number one, like, time control? Pretty easy sell to me, I think. Just
that, and I would
being able to speed it up, slow it down, reverse it, pull it back, redo it, and or replay it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I would rather have the ability to get places instantly, being able to teleport, because travel is such a waste of time.
Oh, that's when you get your best podcast listening done.
Okay, but for the most part, travel is a huge waste of time.
See, other podcasters, I appreciate what you're doing. Melissa might not.
Melissa does. Melissa just wants to be there faster.
All right, so that was question 2.
Wow, okay. Let's go on to 3. How did Dumbledore know to misdirect the committee's attention to the sky and not the forest?
Could he also have a time turner, like, involved in this? Like, does he use it all the time? Like,
or did he see them outside the window?
I mean, that's the more obvious thing. Like, he is very perceptive. We know that. We know that he saw Harry in his invisibility cloak,
right.
or like the outskirts of those events, at least
right.
enough to say, hey, Harry is using the invisibility cloak that you gave him 3 days ago in book 1.
Right.
And he knows Hermione has the time turner, and he knows there's a lot of really big events going on. So he could easily maybe deduce, all right, I may have been smart later on and sent Hermione and Harry back. Like, that's a true option here.
That's really something. Although he has no idea about Sirius at that moment. But he does know enough to know that there are things in place that could potentially cause the...
Right. Yeah. Like the Buckbeaks, because that's really the only thing at play at that point, right? Is
yes.
the Buckbeak. And he knows Buckbeak just disappeared. Or is that like right before they realize he's gone? That's right before he realizes.
Both. So like at first he keeps delaying them. Oh, you need to sign. Okay, let's go. Oh, no. Oh, wait, hold on. Somebody forgot to sign here. Like he delays.
Oh, McNair, you also have to sign here. Yep.
Yes. But then after that, they were like, let's go search the forest. And he's like, it's a hippogriff. Probably
search the skies. Yeah.
Right. Like, does he know to say that? Like, as in, I'm standing at the window and I see this happening. And so I'm going to make sure that that's what I assume happened.
Yeah. It's tough. Figuring out what Dumbledore knows is always difficult.
Oh.
It's one of those characters that sometimes feels a little overpowered, but like, I'm okay with it.
You don't want to give him too much credit for knowing too much, but at the same time...
Too much ahead of time. Figuring things out, he seems... and that's where it differs, if that makes sense, is how much is he figuring out on the fly and improving, and how much did he set up ahead of time and puppet master?
So, in our list of fanfics we want, Dumbledore and the boy who I'm setting up to kill off. Maybe.
You can't say that.
I know, that's what I was afraid of. Dumbledore
Gotta cut that. I just like Dumbledore, and the improv says, always say yes.
Yes, and.
Yes, and. That's what it was. Dumbledore, Harry Potter, and Albus Dumbledore, yes, and.
Oh my gosh. All right, question 4. We're going to keep moving along.
All right, take a second and then say question 4 again.
Question 4, we're going to keep moving along now. How was Harry able to produce a full Patronus this time?
I do think what he says is very well stated. I knew I could do it this time, said Harry, because I'd already done it. Does that make sense? Is what he says, and I think it really does. It's a confidence thing. He already, I mean, and also he's not surrounded by Dementors completely taking over his full environment at the time and distracted by, oh my God, Sirius is going down. Oh my God, Hermione can't do this because she's never been taught. This is her literally first time trying this. He's doing everything else distracted because he's trying to save the other ones instead of just doing it. And they're surrounded. I think the Dementors are clearly a proximity thing. The closer they are, the more effect they have.
Okay.
And also, I really relate it to like a video game type thing. If you've done it once, the pressure is off to do it again for the first time. Once you do something for the first time, that's a lot more difficult than doing it the second time because you've already done it.
Except that he hasn't done it. Except he's done
but
it.
He has.
So like he watched himself do his first time, so his first time wasn't a problem. Because
exactly.
He watched himself do it.
Yeah, he knew that he saw him doing it for the first time was like him playing the hardest song on Guitar Hero and knowing that he had gotten through it already. Like, oh, well, it isn't to prove that he can do it again. He just has to do it again.
Got it. All right, question 5. Where do Sirius and Buckbeak go?
Away? Far away?
Majorca.
Oh, it's got to be Majorca, right? That's where everyone goes on holiday.
There you go.
Right? I like it. Them and Yvonne, right? I like it. Let's go with Majorca. It is the middle of June. What date is it? Do you know? They say it in this chapter. Please don't look it up. June the 6th.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Good job.
So there we go.
All right.
All right, Melissa. Those were good questions, but I am more interested in our chapter superlatives. What was your favorite line this chapter?
So it's the end of the chapter. Sirius says, "We'll see each other again," he says. "You are truly your father's son, Harry."
It's a good line. It's like all of the validation Harry has earned. Like, not just wanted, but he's earned it this chapter.
And it's from somebody who didn't know him growing up, who isn't his teacher, who isn't like, oh, the famous Harry Potter. It's truly somebody who knew his dad, really knew his dad, his very best friend in the world. And here's this guy who he just got back in his life, and he did this thing that he thought was his dad. He saw his dad's Patronus-ish, sort of, and like he earned that from somebody he might actually believe. Because I bet most of the time Harry doesn't believe these kinds of things, that he's like his dad, or he's like, that
he has no way
qualities.
Of gauging that, right? I mean, this is a true comparison, and Harry isn't the kind of guy, we know he's consistently not looking for adoration or any kind of, even what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, he's not looking for any kind of, he's not trying to show off at all. No. And he does these incredible things, and it's nice to see, again, he gets a little validation of, yeah, this is the person that you wish you had in your life, and you don't realize you miss as much as you do until probably this part of the book series.
Right.
He would have approved. Like, he would say, you're doing things the right way. And especially with the way he treated Peter Pettigrew, I think Sirius kind of respects Harry for that. And then also following through with these risky maneuvers to get Sirius freed.
Yes.
It's pretty impressive.
All right. What was your favorite line?
Kind of goes right along with that. And it comes down to the Harry being alone and like in his whole life and kind of coming to grips with that a little bit. It's the, come on, he muttered, staring about. Where are you, Dad? Come on. But no one came. And then he follows it up with getting the job done, realizing that sometimes no one's going to come to save the day. You have to do the job yourself. Don't always count on yourself being the one to be able to do it, but at the same time, you have to try. You have to do the job at hand. And he does it. for all the right reasons.
Yep.
So with that, Melissa, who's your chapter MVP?
Well, I really thought about it. I really wanted to give it to Hermione, you know, since it's named for her and all. And she does some amazing things, but really, this is one of those chapters that we got to give it to Harry.
I agree.
Previously stated comments.
Yeah, my honorable mention is also going to go to Harry. It seems like we, towards the end of the books, tend to give Harry like his one a book status,
But
and Hermione too. I mean, definitely
Yes.
no shade thrown on what Hermione did. It was very impressive, and she got Harry in the right place at the right time to do his thing. Very much kind of like Fawkes at the end of book 2. She is like the greatest assist person in this game. But it's still Harry. It's got to be on both sides, I think.
I agree. Okay, now I think we're wrapped up.
I think so. Good episode. Good chapter.
Good chapter. Mediocre episode. We're okay today. Everything is just okay. If you would like to comment on this chapter or any other of our episodes, you can find us on social media, on Twitter at NotNamedPodcast. We have a website. You can find us at thepodcastthat.com. You can find this and all of our shows along with our Audible affiliate and other type things you can support us with. Our new Patreon account is there as well if you want to sign up and join us for special
exclusive Legion content at patreon.com/stayimaginary. Please do subscribe, rate, and leave comments on iTunes and YouTube. We would really appreciate to hear from you guys. Special thank you to Ben, Sly, Private Eye. Long chapter, buddy. We really appreciate you taking this one off our list for us.
Stay tuned next week when we discuss chapter number 22.
I'll post again. Stay imaginary.
Thanks.